All right, now
Grading the entire 2024 NFL draft first round 1 year later.
that the 2024 NFL regular season is over, I think we
Let's go normal.
can go ahead and grade the entire 2024 NFL draft. We're going to take a look at the first round and go through each and every
B.
one of the
I mean,
picks.
I said
I'm
B.
going to briefly talk
Penix
about
better get
how
like
the
a B.
season went, and I'm going to give them a grade for taking that player at that spot. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you're to support today's video,
Sure, promise.
and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next.
James Daniels A+.
Let's get started and grade the entire 2024 NFL draft.
Marv B-. minus.
All right, so at number 32, we have the Carolina Panthers, as they selected Xavier Legette, a wide receiver from South Carolina.
A-.
Legette was a late riser in the draft and a fan favorite because of his accent, and he was a pretty good one-year receiver at South Carolina. This past season, in 14 games and 11 starts, he ended up putting up 439 yards and 4 touchdowns. He hasn't really jumped off.
That's it? I thought he had, bro, I thought he had like 750 or some shit, bro. I thought he was better than that.
Stat sheet.
Yo, the way they be hyping him up for his accent.
He ended up putting up 439 yards and 4
Let's start
touchdowns.
taking
He hasn't
pick.
really jumped off the stat sheet or taken over any games, but he looks to be a solid second or third receiver
I
for the
say
Panthers. So for now, we're going to give him a C-. At number
C
31,
minus? C minus is damn near. Yo, I don't know about all that. C minus?
third receiver for the Panthers. So for now, we're going to
And
give
like
him
he's
a
trash.
C-.
Like
At
he didn't
number
go through
31,
fucking
the San
Andy Dalton and Bryce
Francisco
Young this
49ers
season.
selected Ricky Pearsall, a wide receiver from Florida, and we're going to go ahead and give that a
His
B.
ass get shot.
This is another one where a guy got hurt and missed part of the year.
He
And I'm
get
sure
hurt,
I
he
don't
got
need to tell you
shot.
what happened with him. He's just lucky to be alive. But on top of that, he managed to play in 11 games once he
What you say, B?
back and even started 4
Yeah.
of them,
Yeah, he
which
did
is kind
pretty
of
good.
unbelievable. He
Yeah.
finished the year with over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, which really doesn't seem like a lot, but getting shot and having to recover definitely plays into grading a little bit, and that's why I
Shit's
give him
crazy,
a B,
bro.
and he has a bright future in whatever he decides to do. And number
Penix didn't play much, so C minus is good. He didn't play much. It's not his fault. Like, but when he was on the court or he was on the field, he was good, in my opinion.
30, the Baltimore Ravens selected a corner from Clemson by the name of Nate Wiggins. He was the second
I feel like he
corner to
played
go in
good.
this year's draft, and he played in just 14 games and started 5, but didn't
He was
really
getting
play all
burnt
that
though.
well when he
was
got on
getting
the field.
burnt. Yeah.
He did have an interception,
Yes.
but his main benefit to the Ravens has been his run defense as a corner who is not afraid to tackle and hit the ball carrier. The Ravens are a good team with some good defensive backs, so he should hopefully develop as the years go by, but for now, he gets a C+.
Okay.
Number 29, the Dallas Cowboys selected Tyler Guyton, an offensive tackle from Oklahoma. They decided to shore up their offensive line by taking Guyton, as he was the 8th tackle taken in the first round. He struggled to start the year and ended up getting 18 penalties, which is one of the highest amounts in the league. He
Damn.
also allowed 6 sacks. He's obviously seen as a project at the next level, so he will still need time, but he did not produce in his rookie year. He gets a D+ in my eyes. At number 28, the Kansas City Chiefs decided to get another Tyreek Hill type receiver as they drafted Xavier Worthy.
That's like a B+, bro.
He hasn't lived
A lot
up
of
to those
promise.
expectations early.
Nah,
and
but
it's
it's a lot of
totally
promise.
apparent that the Chiefs receiver spot is tough to learn. Despite that, he did have 638 receiving yards with 6
come on.
touchdowns
B+.
and had been a weapon on end arounds and screens, as he also ran for over 100 yards and 3 scores. He was actually the Chiefs' second leading receiver behind Travis Kelce, so he's doing a lot better than his yards and touchdowns would have you believe, and for now we're going to give him a B. For those of you that know me, you know I'm a diehard Mizzou fan, and I absolutely love Darius Robinson coming out of Mizzou. He missed the first half of his rookie year with a calf injury, but when he did come back, the Cardinals absolutely mismanaged him. He only played 184 snaps at pass rusher this season because he only had 1 sack and 2 quarterback pressures. He'll put up better stats as they end up playing him more, but they just didn't really play him all that much this year, and I'm not necessarily sure why, so I'm going to give him a B-. At number 26, we have Tampa Bay's selection in Graham Barton, a center from Duke. Center in the NFL is a hard position to keep, but Barton was named Tampa's starting center at the beginning of the year, and he kept it. He only allowed 1 sack at the position, but was responsible for 13 penalties throughout the year. But despite that, he's part of an offensive line that let its running backs rush for over 2,500 yards, and he has a lot to improve, and center is tough to learn, but he's proven up he's good enough at it to probably develop, so I also give him a B-. At number 25, we have another offensive tackle in Jordan Morgan. The Packers decided to take him, but he sat out for part of the season as he got hurt midway through November and was placed on IR. He didn't allow a sack during his time playing, but he was also moved from tackle to guard before the season started, which is interesting. He allowed 7 quarterback pressures and 3 hits before the injury, and was a slightly below average guard at the NFL level, giving him a C. At number 24, Detroit ended up taking Terrion Arnold, a corner out of Bama. He was a pivotal piece in a Lions defense that could go all the way to the Super Bowl, but despite that, he hasn't exactly broken out as a member of the Lions anywhere other than his Instagram stories. With 13 yards per reception allowed and no interceptions on the year, he does have 8 pass deflections, so he isn't a liability, but he has lots of room to improve, so we're going to go ahead and give him a B. Number 23, the Jacksonville Jaguars got the steal of the draft as they took Brian Thomas Jr., a receiver from LSU. For the Jaguars to get Thomas this late in the first round, there'll be a lot of teams that hopefully learn from this mistake. Brian Thomas ended the season top 10 in receiving yards amongst all receivers in the league, as he finished with 1,282 yards and 10 touchdowns. Even with his quarterbacks in Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones struggling, he was able to be a big-time receiving target and showed endless potential. So we're going to go ahead and give him a plus.
Zooming on the spec lens.
The Philadelphia Eagles selected Quinyon Mitchell, a corner from Toledo. Mitchell was drafted by the Eagles for his speed, and in 16 games he provided it. But that was about it for Quinyon. He didn't have any takeaways as a defensive back, and had only 9 deflections, and when a quarterback targeted him, he allowed over 10 yards per catch. He wasn't exactly a standout lockdown corner either, but he wasn't a sore spot. As far as corners go, he was actually pretty middle of the road, and he gets a C. At number 21, the Dolphins selected Chop Robinson, an edge rusher from Penn State. Chop Robinson was another mid-first round edge rusher that had a really good season with his team. Despite being a rotational edge piece for the Dolphins, Chop still managed to have 7 sacks and 42 hurries on the season. This led him to being in the top half of the edge rushers in the AFC. There's still plenty of room for improvement, but he should be a very good edge rusher for the Dolphins next year. He gets a B+. At number 20, the Steelers selected Troy Fautanu, an offensive tackle from Washington. After getting injured in the preseason, it looked like Fautanu was going to be a pretty good player after logging 55 snaps in the Steelers' Week 1 game. But an injury the next week had him put on IR, and he wouldn't play another down for the Steelers in 2024. It's really hard to grade a player that played in one game, so I'm probably not going to give him a grade here. At number 19, the Los Angeles Rams selected Jared Verse, another edge rusher from Florida State. Jared Verse had an up-and-down rookie year, being named the Defensive Rookie of the Month in September, but fizzling out a bit towards the end of the season. He finished the year with 6 sacks, 41 tackles, and 2 forced fumbles, and was actually second in the league with quarterback hurries with 56, and 4th in total pressures with 77.
While he didn't necessarily
blow up the stat sheet, he was a menace on the defensive line and forced quarterbacks into making a lot of mistakes. For that, Verse gets an A. The Bengals were another team that selected an offensive tackle, as they took Amarius Mims at number 18. Mims was supposed to help seal off an offensive wall for Joe Burrow in Cincinnati on the other side of Orlando Brown.
How'd that work out?
And well, even though Burrow led the league in passing yards and Jamar Chase led the league in receiving yards, they missed the playoffs. That wasn't all Mims' fault though, since he only ended up allowing 4 sacks on the year. He did struggle in certain situations though, and allowed 33 quarterback pressures, which ranked him 117th in the league. Because of that, he gets a C-. At number 17, the Minnesota Vikings got a huge steal in Dallas Turner. He was an edge rusher from Bama, and many thought he was the steal of the draft, but it didn't all go according to plan. As a rotational pass rusher for the Vikings, Dallas was 5th on the team with 3 sacks, and even while he wasn't on the field for every down, he also had an interception. But he ended up being overshadowed by Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Bernard, and could have performed a lot better with his snaps. Because of that, Turner gets a C. We now get to the top half, and the Seattle Seahawks ended up selecting Byron Murphy, a defensive tackle from Texas. He was a run-stopping nose tackle at the next level, which is exactly why the Seahawks picked him. He logged just 36 total tackles and half a sack this year, but you can't exactly tell how productive a defensive tackle is just from looking at his stats. His ability to plug the front helped edge rushers like Leonard Williams, and the Seahawks as a whole have 45 sacks. We don't really know how good Byron was. Because of this, I'm going to give him a B-. At number 15, the Colts drafted one of the most inspiring players in the draft in Laiatu Latu, an edge rusher from UCLA. They took him, hoping he'd turn into an athletic freak along the edge, and despite some injury worries near the end of the season, Laiatu did play for most of the year, though he only played for about half of the defensive snaps. He finished the year with just 16 solo tackles and 4 sacks, but he also forced 3 fumbles. He's been great when he plays, but it's weird that the Colts didn't play him more. He gets a B- in my eyes. At number 14, the Saints took Talise Fuaga, an offensive tackle from Oregon State. They finished the year with a 5-12 record and fired their coach after just 9 games. Despite that, Fuaga was exactly what a good tackle should be at the next level. He wasn't part of the problem. He helped an offense that improved in rushing yards and wasn't one of the top teams in terms of sacks allowed. He was one of the few bright spots on a pretty bad Saints offense this year, and he gets a B+. At number 13, the Las Vegas Raiders selected Powers, a tight end from Georgia. The Raiders took Bowers in hopes that he would spark the offense. Well, after firing head coach Antonio Pierce after a 4-13 season, none of that was necessarily Brock's fault, but even with quarterback play that wasn't the best, he still managed to put up nearly 1,200 yards and 5 touchdowns in all 17 games played for the Raiders. He set an NFL record for receptions for rookies of any position, and while he's in the Raiders offense, he led them in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. That deserves an A+. At number 12, the Denver Broncos selected Bo Nix, a quarterback out of Oregon. Bo Nix has actually surprised me this year and has been really good.
Sure.
He helped the Broncos to their first playoff appearance since 2015 by throwing for 3,775 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Sadly though, he had 12 interceptions that were all pretty critical and doesn't seem to play that well under pressure at the moment. But again, he's still young and is one of the best quarterbacks they've had since Peyton Manning.
For
He
sure.
deserves an A- for now. At number 11, the New York Jets selected Olu Fashanu, an offensive tackle from Penn State. It took an awfully long time for Olu Fashanu to crack the starting lineup on the Jets squad that ended up finishing the year at 5-12. He was the backup tackle to Morgan Moses and then Tyron Smith until he got injured in week 11, and this forced Fashanu into a starting spot. He'd start there for the next 5 weeks until he suffered a foot injury and ended up on IR. He wasn't too positive of a spot on the offensive line, and that left a lot to be desired. Fashanu unfortunately gets a D+.
Damn.
Getting into the top 10, the Minnesota Vikings selected J.J. McCarthy, a quarterback from Michigan. It's really impossible to measure the pick in J.J. McCarthy because he's literally never seen the field. He injured his knee in the preseason game against the Raiders, and it was bad enough that he had to sit out the entirety of the year. The Vikings weren't better off without him, but looking how good he played in that game, it's hard to tell they could have been even better with him. I won't rank him because of his injury, but if he's 100% next year, he could be good, and there's definitely going to be a quarterback battle, or something's going to happen with Sam Darnold. At number 9, the Chicago Bears took wide receiver Rome Odunze from Washington. Odunze was a huge first-round pick for the Bears, and it looked like he was going to be a good player for them, but unfortunately, he broke a rib early on in the year, which sidelined him, and he only started 12 games for the Bears. Despite that, he did play in all 17, racking up 734 yards and 3 touchdowns. His quarterback was getting sacked for most of his games, and the Bears are kind of dysfunctional, so he'll still get a B- and has lots of potential. At number 8, the Atlanta Falcons took one of the riskiest picks of the draft, taking Michael Penix Jr., a quarterback from Washington. This was one of the weirder picks of the draft last year, especially after getting Kirk Cousins signed to a huge deal. But late in the season, Kirk got benched, and the Falcons brought in Penix to start. What ended up happening? Well, he went 1-2 as a starter, throwing for 775 yards with 3 touchdowns and 3 picks. He didn't really play like a first-round quarterback.
2 of those picks is not his fault.
But you also can't say the offense was really suited for him.
Honestly,
he didn't look any better than Kirk did, and the jury is still
Cap! He looked way better than Kirk in them 3 games. That's how I tell you. You look at the stat sheet, bro. You're not watching the games. You're not watching the passes. You're not watching the flow of the offense when he's on the field. You're not watching it, bro. Kirk's 9 interceptions in 6 games is nothing compared to his 3 picks in 3 games. Stop it.
He didn't really play like a first-round quarterback, but you also can't say the offense was really suited for him. Honestly, he didn't look any better than Kirk did, and the jury is still out, but early on I'm going to give him a C-. At number 7, the Tennessee Titans selected J.C. Latham, an offensive tackle from Bama. Moving from right to left tackle isn't as easy as some people may think, but J.C. was a solid tackle for the Titans this year in his rookie season. He started every single game and played every snap for the entire year, and was part of an offensive line that saw the quarterback get sacked 52 times and a running game that had 4.1 yards per rush.
What did he do to be yelling on the sideline like this? You're a fucking offensive line.
Get sacked 52 times.
What are you doing yelling on the sideline?
That had 4.1 yards per rush. Despite that, the Titans still finished the year at 3-14, and the offense wasn't really all that good. At number 6, the New York Neighbors, a wide receiver from LSU. Despite catching passes from 3 different quarterbacks on a team that finished 3-14 and fired their head coach, Neighbors still managed to be a top receiver in terms of yardage, 1,200 yards, and also had 7 touchdowns. He was consistently one of the only bright spots on the entire Giants roster, and even though defenses knew he was going to be the guy getting the ball, they still couldn't stop him.
That's a fact.
He ended up having 1,000 yards in the season, and in my opinion, he's probably the best rookie receiver in this class, and we'll see how good he plays out over time. He gets an A+.
But forget about Brian Thomas.
At number 5, the Los Angeles Chargers selected Joe Alt, an offensive tackle from Notre Dame.
He played really well.
It's hard to look at just stats and say how good an offensive lineman is, but the Chargers went from picking high in last year's draft to being in the playoffs, largely because of how good their offensive line became. But they've done that through a lot of the season without Joe Alt, who got hurt in week 3 and missed a huge chunk of the season. But when he's played, he's been
He
considered
did
one of the
good.
better tackles in the league, according to
For
Pro
sure.
Football Focus, and statistically, he deserves an A. At number 4, the Arizona Cardinals selected Marvin Harrison
B.
Jr. from Ohio State.
Production
Marvin
wasn't
Harrison
there.
Jr. was far and
but,
away
you know,
considered the best receiver in this class,
you know,
but he might be receiver 2
double
or
team.
3 when it's all said and done. He's only had 885 yards with 8 touchdowns, which is second on his team behind Trey McBride. With a better quarterback than Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, he put up less yards than both of them. Part of that could be coaching, but in my opinion, he gets a B+.
Okay, B+ is fine. Like, that's higher than I guess what I would do. Can't act like the defense wasn't just fucking on
Yards
him.
for both of them.
Double
Part of
team
that
him and
could be
shit.
coaching,
Fucking
but
focus
in
on
my
him.
opinion, he gets a B+.
He knew he was gonna get the ball, so he
So to
shut that
round
shit
out
down
the
early.
2024 draft,
This
we have
guy.
3 quarterbacks. At number 3, the New England Patriots selected Drake May, a quarterback from North Carolina. He's another quarterback who entered a bad situation in New England, and it's hard to really
B+.
tell how good he's been because of it. He's played injured a lot too, but you can honestly make the argument that Joe Milton has looked better when he's played than Drake has. In 12 starts, he led the Pats to a 3-9 record with 2,300 yards, 15 touchdowns, and
I don't know
10
about
picks.
that.
He hasn't really had a good shot yet, but he also hasn't looked very good when he's been playing. In my opinion, he gets a C. At number 2, we have Washington Commanders, as they selected Jaden Daniels, a quarterback from LSU.
A+.
Jaden Daniels has looked like the best quarterback out of this year's draft class, having the
A+.
Commanders
It's
to
not
the
even
playoffs
close.
in his first year, and even winning a game by throwing for 3,600 yards with 25 touchdowns
Lady and a
and
tramp.
8 picks, as well as running for
All right, you're blazing now. 4+ is crazy. Not that good now.
Considering the Commanders went 4-13 last year, and they're sort of cursed, adding Daniels and Cliff.
Nah, Cuban bracelet?
Considering the
Bro, what is a Cuban
Commanders
bracelet?
went
Get out of here. I don't
4-13
care.
last year,
I don't
and
care
they're
if it's
sort of
warm-ups.
cursed.
That's crazy.
Adding Daniels and Cliff King's
Who's he
great
feeling like?
offense has done wonders for them, and he should be one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC before long. Daniels gets an A+. At number 1, the Bears took Caleb Williams, a quarterback from USC.
It's hard to.
Despite being the
you know,
number 1 pick and being paired with Roma
B+.
Dunze, the Bears didn't really do a lot with Caleb this season. His offensive line has allowed 68 total sacks, which is roughly 4 sacks per game, and even with him throwing for over 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 6 picks, there still is a lot to be desired with him, it seems. He has the weapons in the receiving game and a good running back behind him in DeAndre Swift, but the coaching was bad and the offensive line play was worse, and he'll
Literally.
get better with a good
Terrible
coach
combo.
over time, but for now, we're to go ahead and give him a B. So yeah, today I went through the 2024 NFL Draft first round, and we talked about each pick, how they did, and I gave them a grade. It's pretty self-explanatory, but let me know your
Yeah, I thought
thoughts
he was
down
better
below.
than that.
Who was
Not
the
way better, but better. No offense, dude. I love your videos, but I delete this one. Lol. This is a bad video. Clearly didn't watch any film, bro, on most of the picks, bro. Just straight stats. Still must have been rushed or something. Take time to actually study the film. Quality over quantity. Real shit. Come on now. Say he doesn't get playing time and they get B-. Next player. The bias is crazy. With all due respect. May getting a C. Yeah, bro, that is wild. Talking about Joe Milton play better than Drake May? What are you talking about? This video confirms Sky's just AI. Not everybody saying this shit. No dislikes though? That's cool though. Guess don't hate. That's wild. Tell me you don't watch the Eagles games without telling me you don't watch the Eagles games. Yeah, bro, cause he bringing up like, oh, past breakups, picks on the year, like, bro, what? Why it sucks to be an NFL quarterback? Yeah, cornerback is definitely the hardest position. Cornerback then quarterback. Maybe quarterback over cornerback, I don't know.